Pranams to everyone. It's so wonderful to be in your association, to have your company. That's all right, I use my arms a lot. Armstrong. It is so wonderful to have your darshan, to see so many acharyas. And first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Akhilesh Gumashta and Ganeshwari Didi, and to say to all of the team of volunteers, this is a perfect moment to understand what we in the Vedic civilization call the Devas and the Devis. They were feared very much by the Abrahamic religions because they thought that they were competition. Does it feel to you like the people making this event possible are competing against its purpose? No. So could we for a moment give them a big round of applause and show gratitude? And that, my friends, is the much misunderstood relationship between ourselves and the Devas and Devis. It is not that we're supposed to ask them for things. That's rude, though they'd be glad to give it. We're supposed to be grateful for what they have given us and promise to cooperate with the ritam, the laws of nature. That is our promise to them. And now, considering where I began my journey, I must first say Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshvara, Guru Sakshad, Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Because coming where I came from, I cannot talk to you about your brilliant culture that has now become mine without showing the gratitude first to the acharyas on whose behalf I now speak to you, to the best of my ability. I was born Jeffery Armstrong in a white middle-class family in Detroit, Michigan, a Christian family, so you could say I was born a born-again Christian. And at age 23, I had finally tired of Western civilization. It only took 23 years for me to be tired of what they were trying to do and to smell that something was wrong. So I went from a born-again Christian to a born again and again and again and again and again Hindu. And that's why I'd like to begin our discussion of the epics, so-called, of the itihasa, more correctly described as. Do you hear the word in there? History, itihasa, history. Can you hear history in there? The etymology of the English word history is that it came from the Sanskrit word itihasa. It is a spin-off word from itihasa, but it doesn't have the precision that itihasa has, as it actually happened or took place. So at this juncture, I want to say a word of thanks to one of my great friends and inspirations, Professor Nilesh Oak, Acharya Nilesh Oak, who has recently brought forth. Please give him some applause. Because his work has now shown conclusively that the Vedic library contains textual proof, evidence of the astronomical situation when the Vedic culture went through different stages of development. And to put it simply in his words, 7,000 years ago, the Mahabharata. 14,000 years ago, the Ramayana. 21,000 years ago, the Veda. The Rig Veda, the Sama Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Atharva Veda. So you are not people of a book. Can I say we? We are not people of a book. We're people of a library. It's very important to think of ways of describing your culture to people like that, so that they can grab a hold of it, take it home, and use it the next time they go to describe you. It's very important, and this is what we're going to be talking about this evening in the brief amount of time that we have, is how to do that in relationship to these great Shastra. But first, I want to spend a moment sharing a few essentials with you that I learned from my gurus. I've had 3 gurus, a guru of Vedanta, in whose ashram I lived for 5 years as a brahmachari, a guru of Jyotish, whom I studied with for 3 years and became a Jyotishi, and a Benares Pandit who had memorized the 4,000 grammatical rules of the Ashtadhyayi of Panini, Ramanath Sharma, and he taught me Sanskrit. And each of these great acharyas gave me a gift that has grown and blossomed. And from each of their gifts, I'm going to share a perspective on the Itihasa with you tonight, on the Ramayana. Because we cannot talk about the Ramayana without talking about the Mahabharata. Because they're brother and sister, they're cousins. And in what way do we know that? So here we go. As a Jyotishi, one of the things that I learned is about the Yuga cycles. Yes? Matsya Kurma Varahascha Narasingho Chavamana Ramo Rama Charamascha Krishna Kalkir Janardanaha. We must remember this as the context. So just a note for you. But what is the missing vitamin for the rest of our world? Or at least most of it. For Western civilization, for science. You know what I call modern science? The runaway abused child of the medieval Catholic Church. Do you understand? They're simply trying to know how matter works, to manipulate it. But they do not ask anything about where the laws of matter came from. So they have not really got buddhi. They're just smart. Buddhi finds the conclusion. Buddhi sees that intelligence is all around us. Oh, intelligence is all around us, but we only have one lifetime. Now ask yourself, if you only have one lifetime, why would you be afraid of dying? If your nature is to have one lifetime, you would say one lifetime. That's what we are. But every creature that exists is resisting leaving its body. So does this not tell us something very important? And this is what's known as, so here's the first Sanskrit word, Mahatma. Say it. Everyone, say it. Mahatma. There's 2 words, Mahatma and Duratma. Duratma means small-minded. Mahatma means seeing the big picture, holding the big view. The big view includes everyone over unlimited amounts of time. Now with this, I'm trying to share a procedure with you. The procedure is, do not use Christian terminology to describe your culture. You are not a religion. You are a dharma culture. Don't say our Hindu religion. You're just a colonized Hindu then. You're doing as you were told by who? Macaulay. Raise your hand if you know who Macaulay was. No, not that many. So when the British were trying to dominate Bharat, they sent a so-called lord, another word you better not use. Lord means the one who makes the bread to feed the peasants when they slave in the fields, and they get no pay. They're just slaves, and we give them bread. Haflard and Haflady is the bread maker and the bread giver. Give us this daily our daily bread in Christianity is the religion of landlords, the religion of a caste system. So kettle calling the pot black. The British say we have a caste system, but what do they have? Lords and ladies by birth? Excuse me. But we have a Varna ashram dharma system. They have a caste system. So now, here's where this leads us. It leads us to the very simple question, is the source of everything user-friendly? We know user-friendly now because we have technology, but what is the world around us if not technology? The devas make it user-friendly. Each one of them is in charge of a department of Prakriti. Next word. Prakriti. I'm waiting. Everyone. Cat got your tongue? Prakriti. I want you to learn these one at a time so you start using them when you're talking to English speakers. Because then you can teach them a new word. If you use the old word that you were colonized with, then it'll never change. So this process is going to change the words that you use to describe yourself and your culture. But what the British did is they sent this fellow, Macaulay, to Bharat, and he came, and what he did was he studied the situation, and he went back to the British, and he said, I've been to India, and I've discovered that their language Sanskrit is the basis of their culture. So we must destroy this language, stop funding it altogether, and only teach them English so they can become like us. And then we can dominate them. What is the language in the public schools in India? English. So they succeeded, didn't they? The question now, historically, is, and this is what the epics raise for us. What is the epic really about? It's about our journey, and is there a user-friendly being who is behind that journey that is friendly and wants to become our friend? This is the backdrop of the Vedic culture. A user-friendly culture because the Supreme Being comes in person from time to time. I told you I was a Jyotishi. And in the Parashara Aura, in the canonical text of Jyotish, Matsya Kurma Varahascha, Narasingho cha Vamana, Ramo Ramacha Ramascha, Krishna Kalkir Janardanaha. So, do you remember at the Swayamvara of Sita, who else was present there? Yes. The previous Ram, Parasuram. And he was carrying something called the bow of Vishnu. And he came to the Swayamvara, and the bow of Vishnu went from his hand to Sri Ram's, indicating to us that the next avatar had appeared and was now doing what the avatars do, avatara. Descend and heal and restore the culture. The healing and restoration is so that we are confident of ourselves. as immortal beings on a long journey, and we see through their many adventures another thing that Western civilization has forgotten. Tell me how the Abrahamic religions are doing on showing respect for the feminine. Positive or negative? Yay or boo? Boo. Where's the feminine divine in Western civilization? America just recently grudgingly allowed women to vote, grudgingly let them own property. What is this about? In indigenous cultures throughout the world and in the Vedic civilization, there's a masculine and feminine divine who are the archetypes of us. The Sanskrit word is arka. It's Surya. Surya, Aryaman, Bhaga, Tvastar, Pushan, Arka. Archetypes, archaeology, from the Sanskrit. So, these great epics are the user-friendly outreach of Sri Bhagavan. Don't say God, don't say Lord, don't use those colonizing English words ever again. That's my request to you. Do not use them. Politely say, may I teach you a new word? We're not just the Hindu civilization, we're the Hindu Vedic Sanatan Dharma culture. Can you say that? Hindu Vedic Sanatan Dharma culture. It's very important to understand that it's time to escape the chaos created during colonization with Macaulay's removal of Sanskrit. So with this, I want to make another insertion into our understanding of the epics. There are 6 limbs to the Veda. They're called the Veda Angas. I never, almost never, hear anyone from Bharat speak of them. And yet, aside from Nilesh proving that the astronomy in the Vedas is irrefutable evidence of the time that they were taking place, the other unknown throughout the world is that the Sanskrit alphabet, the Sanskrit grammar, the Sanskrit etymology, nirukta, these are the limbs of the Veda, which means the way it goes forward through time. The Sanskrit language has 4 different departments. Shiksha, correct pronunciation. Vyakarana, the 4,000 rules of the Ashtadhyayi of Panini, the grammatical rules of the language. Then, the 2,300 etymological rules of the Nirukta. Then, finally, the Chandas, Bhuvasva, Tatsa, Viturva, Reniyam, Bargo, Devasya, Dimahi, Dio, Yona, Prachodayat. That mantra is a poem. It's in the Chandas measure, otherwise known as the Gayatri poetic measure. That same measure is written in the Bhagavad Gita. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pravartate iti madvaba janti mam buddha bhava samanvita. 8 beats, 4 lines. So, this is Chandas. So there's 4 limbs of the Veda. Please listen carefully. These 4 limbs of the Veda make Sanskrit the most perfect language on our planet. No exceptions. And you can say this to anyone, and before Nilesh pointed out the astronomy, this was the thing that you could point out that no one can refute, and yet no one does it. I hardly ever hear it said. that the language of Sanskrit is Samskritam. What does it mean? The perfected language, doesn't it? It's the language that was made to be perfect so that what? Its meaning does not drift over time. It's called linguistic drift. In English, we have a saying, do you get my drift? Which means, is my sloppy English making sense to you? Because English words are not precise. And if you keep on using them to describe yourself, you're still the colonized culture the British purposely disabled. And if you do that, your children will stop. I really want you to get this because these are your tools. So there's 4 linguistic tools in the middle of the Veda Angas. What's the first one? Jyotish. Now, everyone knows about karma, but almost no one knows what it really is and knows that it's the connection from one life to the next. Born again and again and again and again and again and again and again, Hindu. We cannot die, and that's what this means. This means I see the real you, the one who cannot die. I see you. I see your real, true being. I honor it, and now I'm making a promise. I promise you, I will do my best to respect you and see you that way. If you're in the female form, I don't look at your body first, I look at your Atma first. If you're in the masculine form, I don't see you first as dangerous, I see you first as an Atma. I see every living entity as an Atma. Brahmabhuta prasanatma, nasochati nakangshati, samasarveshu bhuteshu, mad bhaktim labate param. How can you finally develop your highest state of love if you disrespect all living entities? So it is that this understanding of these 4 linguistic elements, these limbs of the Veda, are crucial, and yet no one talks about them. I can honestly say, I have never heard someone from Bharat explaining themselves to another person via these limbs. The upper one is Jyotish. Through Jyotish, you learn the body type, the Vata, Pitta, Kapha, the way the person should eat, the way the person should sleep, the way they should live in their body, the science of embodiment. So why is that not already incorporated into medicine in the Vedic civilization? Pharmaceutical companies, they don't want it. They don't want herbs. They don't want Ayurvedic medicines, Chavanprash. They don't want people to be seen in terms of these body types because it's further proof of what? Many lifetimes. And most people in the Vedic culture don't understand how much resistance the rest of the world has to more than one lifetime. But only one lifetime, what to speak of ruining the epics, it ruins everything. And if you do have many lifetimes, then every time you come back, you're carrying the cause and effect you created previously. And that's called the science of Jyotish. It's not only used to keep track of the karma that's being downloaded right now. So I call the delivery of that karma UPS, Universal Parcel System. Do you see it? The devas and devis, the grahas, are delivering that karma. That karma, they're the UPS, Universal Parcel System. Every one of us in this room has parcels of karma on their way to our front door or back door, to being delivered to us. And they belong to us. We requested them. It isn't that the planets are doing something to us. They're delivering what we previously requested by our actions in previous lives. This is the greater worldview. So if you hold this worldview, Mahatma, If you see only one life and you're afraid and you don't want to die, Duratma. Or one life and a fear-based religion, Duratma, not Mahatma. So what is the next limb of the Vedas? That's 5. 4 that have to do with the perfection of Sanskrit and maintain it and make it what it is. Why? So that knowledge stays the same over thousands and thousands and thousands and millions of years. So the first was Jyotish, so we now can start keeping track of the body type, the birth moment, the karmas that are coming to the person, understand the making of their internal being, their genetic structure, give them medicines and treatments accordingly, even when they're young, feed them correctly, give them the right lifestyle, understand the way they behave in terms of a science. This is the Vedic civilization, and yet the world does not know about this. I guarantee you. I've been a Jyotishi since 1973. The world is not awake to it yet. Medicine doesn't care at all about body types. My partner Sandy and I were once having dinner with an Ayurvedic doctor and his wife. He said to me, "Give me your wrist and I'll tell you the years in which you had all of your childhood diseases." I said, "Yeah, sure." He said, "Measles, you were 12 years old. Mumps, 8 years old." We went right down the list, got every one of them right. And I looked at him and I said, "Yes, and you have moon in Kataka." And he said, "Yes, that's right." As a Jyotish, I could see him. As a doctor, he could see me. Why is this culture not spreading around the world in the name of the Vedic civilization? Post-colonial damage. So, what is the last limb of the Veda? This one will surprise you. Veda Anga, top one, Jyotish. The one that's being ignored right now because it's fortune telling. That's the story on it. See, instead of understanding who we really are from life to life. Then the 4 that make Sanskrit perfect. 1 to go. Kalpa. Thank you. Kalpa is the one that was called rituals to the pagan gods. It was us saying thank you to the devas and devis. And when we do that, don't we make an offering into the fire? Don't we put it in Agni's mouth and say Svaha, the name of his Shakti? And when we do that, the smoke comes up, and that smoke is called Hutam. And we, in German, Gutam. Are you ready? That word became the word God. Don't ever say that word again as a representative of your culture. Bhagavan is not God. But let me ask you, in every translation I've ever seen, Bhagavan is translated God, instead of having an actual definition of Bhagavan and Krishna. So this is the colonization of Sanskrit. So kalpa actually means ecology. Why? Because the devas give to us, we utilize it, we need it in order to live, we need the fire to get it ready for our body to digest further with its fire, with its Agni. So now, that kalpa is actually our vow to obey the laws of nature. What's that called in the modern world? Ecology. How are we doing with it? Terrible. Because we've forgotten the interaction between ourselves and the devas and devis. In the Vedic culture, everything is personified. So those are the 6 Veda Angas. By knowing those, the Vedic culture is moved forward through time. This is critically missing in the explanation of the Vedic civilization. Now, extract from that the rules of Sanskrit. Then, how do we repair the situation? Recently, we published a book called the Bhagavad Gita. Now, this is in juxtaposition to the Ramayana. Matsya, Kurma, Varahascha, Narasingho, Chavamana, Ramo, Rama, Parasurama, Charamascha, Balarama, Krishna, Kalkir, Janardanaha. 10 avatars. 10 avatars, and we've had the 9th. And that was Bhagavan Shri Krishna. That 9th avatar means we're now in Kali Yuga. And did it not happen to Parikshit that he was walking and the whole situation unfolded, and then Kali came? So now this brings us to Sukadev and Vyasadeva. Quickly, I'll say this for you. Vedanta is the next thing that I hear no one talking about. Veda Anta. What is the conclusion of the Veda? And how do we know what that is? So what are the texts that we use to establish that? What I'm trying to show you is that the 2 itihasas are a sequencing of showing us that the person of the divine is the basis of everything. Ram, Sita, Lakshman, Hanuman, whom we're like, or supposed to be like, doing seva, and so on. So that's established as the personal divine. The next stage of that happens as the 9th avatar in the cycle of avatars. What are they an extension of? Vishnu and Lakshmi. For what purpose? Keeping life in balance. What is the purpose of the Hindu Vedic Dharma? To have a harmonized, balanced relationship with life. We call it now ecology, but ecology is just Dharma. It's adhering to Dharma. It's working with Mata Bhumi in such a way that we keep our vow to Mata Bhumi. And by the way, what word did Mata Bhumi give us? Bhumi, humi, humus, human. Did you know that? There's Sanskrit buried in English. Raise your hand if you're a doctor. Any doctors in the room? Okay. So, do you know any cardiologists? What does the word cardio mean? Heart. Where did it come from? Hridaya. What does that word mean? Heart. So Sanskrit is the mother, and the Veda Angas show us the various departments, and the Agnihotra Yagya is connected to the fire in our belly and the smoke arising, and all of this interconnected relationship is called ecology. But again, this is missing in our world. So these are the ways in which we can now progress in explaining the culture to the world. And the last part of this is then, in the Gita, what we did was took out all the Christian colonizing words. If you look at any translation of any Vedic text, you'll find Lord, God, sin, heaven, hell, religion. They've all got to come out. All of those great acharyas and their disciples labored over those books, but the books are ruined by having those colonizing words in there. Instead, we need to teach 100 or so Sanskrit words to the world. And if you don't do this, I'm telling you seriously, you're going to lose the next generation, because they're being taught English and they will not know how to describe their culture unless they have Sanskrit vocabulary. They don't have to master Sanskrit, but everyone needs to have about 100 or 200 Sanskrit words. What do we call the world we're in right now? Prakriti. What do we call the realm that our Atma comes from? Brahman. Brahmabhuta prasanatma na sochati na kankshati samasarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. So, what does Bhagavan say in chapter 10 of the Bhagavad Gita, which is called the summary of the Bhagavad Gita? This is where the Ramayana and the Mahabharata come together. He says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pravartate iti madva bhajanti mam buddha bhava samanvita machchita madgata prana bodhayantak parasparam kathayantas chamam nityam tushanti cha ramanti cha tesham satata Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tvam gainamam upayanti te tesham evanukam partham aham agyanajam tamaha nashami atma bhavasta jnanadipena basvata. Now let's do it in English. I am the source of everything. From me the entire creation flows. Knowing this, the wise adore me with all their hearts. Their thoughts dwell in me. Their lives are surrendered unto me. And they derive great satisfaction and bliss, enlightening one another and conversing about me. To those who are constantly devoted and adore me with purest love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Out of compassion for them, I, who dwell within their hearts, destroy the darkness born of ignorance with the shining lamp of knowledge. So here's the bottom line. If you have a computer, raise your hand if you don't have a computer. This is your computer. This is your computer. And to have a computer, you need a user's manual. This is not the only Vedic text, but this is the one which was designated to be the user's manual. So the last thing I want to share with you is where Vedanta came from. What does it mean? Veda, Anta. Where is the Veda taking us? You ready? So, who are the great Vedantas? Well, Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Nimbarka, Vishnu Swami, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All of these acharyas, each with their different perspective, are all Vedantas. And that Vedanta is the essence of the Veda, because the Purna avatars finally, when Kali Yuga was about to begin, after Ram came and demonstrated his personal nature through the Leela of the Ramayana, then Sri Bhagavan came and did the same thing on the eve of Kali Yuga. And Veda Vyasadeva was on the ground, and he wrote down the Mahabharata, but he also wrote down the Vedanta Sutras, the 550 sutras of the Vedanta Sutras. So all of those sampradayas, the way they become an acharya is they write a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedanta Sutras of Veda Vyas, and the 10 principal Upanishads from the Vedas. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasisyate. That means everything is emanating from Brahman, and everything that emanates is perfect and complete. And all of those perfect and complete things they're endlessly emanating, and even though they emanate from Brahman, Brahman is not diminished. Then Kurvan eviha karmani jijivishekshatam samaha evam tvai nanyate tosti na karma lipyate nare. If you don't show gratitude, meaning ecology, to the laws of nature, meaning the devas and devis, then your life will not be a success. These are the secret departments that are right out in the open. If we understand them, then we can bring the Vedic civilization to the world as a way to live on the planet. One of my favorites is Matabhumi, because our time's almost up. Om Yasyam samudra bhuta sindurabo, yasyam bandam prishtaya sambhavu, yasyamidam jinvati pranadeva, sano bhumi puru mehe dadatu, vishvambara vasudani pratishta, hiranyavaksha jagato niveshani, Vaishvanaram didvati bhumir agni indro shabatamineno dadatu hiryasve parvata himavanto anyam dev prithivisyo namaskuru Arjun Krishna Rohini Vishvarupam Ruam Bhumi Prithivi Indragupta Ajato Hato Akshato Jeshtam Prithivi Aham Yate Madhyam Prithivi Akshanabhyam Yastabulyastanva Sambhavuhu Dasu Loke Habina Prabhasvabhata Bhumi Putro Aham Pratibhyaha Parjanya Pita Sapurna Vipaltu Om. This year, Bharata, India, is the G20 country to lead the world by circumstance. And dear Narendra Modi, in his wisdom, has said, let us make a world that cooperates. Let us make a world that works together. Let us, in this room, let all of us start talking like that. Let's talk about the world, because this civilization thought about it, saw it, has a long view. You are all Mahatmas, that's why you're here. You're feeding that true part of yourself. You're being the Atma and not just the body. So, all of you are ambassadors. This last year, I was made an ambassador by the ICCR. I was given an award of Vedic Scholar of the Year. I was so humbled. It only increased my determination to do something worthwhile and to do something to bring the Vedic culture to the world. But here's the secret. We never coerce, we never convert, we only have a friendly conversation. That's the Vedic way. Because in the user's manual, I mean in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, you know, Arjun, the reason I'm explaining myself to you is because we are friends. This is the secret. It is a user-friendly culture. And I'm trying to show you one thing that's very important. If you can teach your children how to talk about the Vedic culture in proper, meaning clear English, with Sanskrit words as well, not using the borrowed terminology of the colonizers, then you will undo Macaulay's damage. You will now stand up as your own civilization. You will do it with dignity and ease. You don't have to learn the entirety of Sanskrit. Learn 100 important words. We come from Brahman. We are called Jiva Atmas. By the way, Jiva Atma is where Adam and Eve came from. Atma and Jiva became Eve and Adam and Eve. The word atom in atomic came from Atma. The thing is, you can't cut it, you can't burn it, you can't break it. But the atom can be cut. Atome. Atomic means to cut the atom. But the Atma can't be cut. Do you see it? So this way of talking will keep your children and grandchildren and their children from getting lost in the chaos of the world right now. Narendra Modi sees it. Circumstance, divine circumstance has arranged it. You're all here because you sense it. You feel it. So this has got to become a movement that has some momentum. We have to get this katha moving slowly but in a friendly way throughout the world. And we need to talk about it So I invented one more word. I'll end with this for you. That I watched democracy fail where I grew up in North America. And most recently, we saw Donald Trump talk about not an acharya. And then we saw Joe Biden just biding his time. And I looked at both of them and I said, boy, we're in trouble. What we need is a dharmocracy. Dharmocracy. And what we don't need is entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs only make a profit. They're not answerable to anyone. That's called colonization. Entrepreneur, I thought about it. I thought, so what do they leave behind them? Entrepreneur. And what do we really want? Mantrapreneur. Yes. You need to play with these words and learn to bring the truth of your own culture forward. And start using the Sanskrit because it's the most scientific language. Sanskrit is the programming language. The problematic English has to go, and the correct English definitions will lead us forward as long as they lead us to Sanskrit words. Why? To show everyone the Hindu, Vedic, Sanatana Dharma world view. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.